Well, good morning from the Down the Road studio here at the Scott Learning Center. I'm Jay Mahaffey, host of the Down the Road podcast. I got a couple of local guests with me today. They're going to introduce themselves. We're going to have a little talk today about what's going on in the cotton and the farming world, and talk a little bit about some Learning Center data, and really tell you what we've got planted since we're coming up to tour season, tell you what we got planted here on the Learning Center and what will be available for you to see and get data about and hopefully some information to use on the farm. So, gentlemen, welcome to the podcast. Introduce yourself to the world.
Yep, good to be here. I'm Harrison Burford. I started out here in Bayer back in 2016. I'm sure some of you guys have seen me. I was the agronomist here for the past 3 years, now an ARM for Scott and the South Delta, and it's good to be here.
Brent Blocker, have been here for a long time with Mr. J. I am now ARM for Scott, and good to be here.
We're glad to have y'all. A little known fact to the world. I hope he doesn't mind me telling the world this. Brent's Dr. Keith Jones' grandson.
Yes, sir.
One of my personal heroes, and a hero of the cotton industry. We've got a bunch of his old information and slides around. The father of Delta Pine 50.
Yep.
And
20.
a bunch of notable varieties. So we got quite a bit of history here in the room, and I hope we can compound off of that and talk about a few things that are relevant to the world today. The first thing I'd like to point out before we get into the plots on the Learning Center is we've been doing this a long time, relatively, and we've collected quite a body of data that I think can help people in managing the crop at least be aware of what they ought to be concerned about.
Correct.
So the first thing I would point out, since it's the most relevant topic right now, is we're coming up to the time in almost all mid-southern cotton fields where growth control is important. So y'all been out monitoring our plots here at Scott. We've got a lot of rain. We got all our fertility out, I'm assuming.
Not yet.
Well,
it's coming.
Yeah, it's coming as soon as the rain dries up.
Yes, sir.
That's the statement of the world today.
Yes, sir.
So it's time to start looking at this sort of proactive. And one thing I was going to talk through a little bit today is several years ago, a couple of times, and it's due for an update, but a couple of times, I took our Learning Center data where I had a yield and a height from a PGR trial. And y'all remember that?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Meta-analysis.
Meta-analysis.
And we made a summary of that over time or across the series of tests, and we learned a few things. And it's difficult to describe completely over a podcast. Y'all, I need a chart for almost everything. And I don't have a short answer most of the time. But what I did was divided the varieties into 4 different groups. And this meta-analysis business was done across the period of about 10 years, 12 years of PGR data we developed at Scott. We divided the varieties, and people ask us the question all the time, why do you have an untreated plot in the field? We have a totally untreated with mepiquat plot in almost all our PGR work. The reason we have that is it defines the nature of the variety without PGRs. I need to know how it grows, and it turns out that was particularly relevant in that data. So I divided the varieties into 4 different categories. You had them whether they were short or tall without PGRs. And then I used the other category of how responsive were they to PGRs when I actually applied the materials. So with that, I was able to figure out where the risk, sort of correlate where the risk lies. And if you think about what it means, if you've got a variety that's short to begin with, it's probably not one that's very aggressive growing. Typically, it's not going to require a lot of growth control to begin with. But if I got one that's tall, I need to figure out what the story is. And when you think about what we learned in this data, y'all remember the main conclusion? The varieties that were most responsive to PGR were the tallest without PGR.
Right.
It just turned out that when we put the products on them and we used growth control the right way, they were easier to control. Some are more sensitive than others. Well, that was really the bulk of the message. And when I take those varieties that are tall, that are more responsive to PGR, the penalty for an extra inch of growth in that kind of a variety was about, looking at the data, it was about 17 pounds of lint an acre an inch.
Right.
Well, that sounds like a lot, until you look at the other category, which is the ones that were tall and less responsive. Penalty was almost double.
Right.
30 pounds of lint an inch an acre. Well, what does that mean and how do I use that practically? Y'all know I love graphs and data and all that stuff, but you got to figure out how to use it.
Right.
What it says is where does the risk lie? Well, if I got a variety that's tall without picks and it's not very sensitive, that's where I need to be most aware of the potential need for growth control today. And the thing I would point out to the audience is that's the bulk of what we're growing today. That's things like 2537, 2127, 2038, 1646, for that matter, 555, if you want to go that far back.
I was going to say, does it seem like the later maturities are the growthiest?
Typically, I mean,
just because they're just long season.
Well, they're indeterminate,
right,
which typically means that they're more cotton plant than anything else because they like to hang on, or they tend to hang on and tolerate stresses and beating and banging around, which is where we plant cotton a lot of times.
Right.
Then the next question is, well, why do you have the other varieties? Why do you have the ones that are easier to grow? It's because, like some of these production systems here at Scott, it's not a good idea in some places to plant those very growthy, very indeterminate varieties on these highly managed, rotated soils that are typically growthier, all that kind of stuff. So I just point out all of that to say, I would invite the audience to go out and think about your varieties. Think about what you're growing. Think about the position they're in the field. Are they rotated behind corn? Are they at relatively high population? Has it rained? Do you have all your fertilizer out? Now's the time to make that decision. And the other nugget I would point out of that data is I took it all and dumped it together in the end, and I was looking to see what the data told me about the height of the plants at the end of the year. And there's a big concentration of very high yielding plots in that data that concentrate around that 48 to 50 inch tall at the end of the year. So that's kind of the target. And that's, what we view as ideal for mechanical harvest. We typically minimize boll rot in those cases. All of that stuff adds together to help us get there. But if you don't target 48 now, or 50 or whatever your target might be, and some regions need a taller plant anyway.
Yep.
Place where you get a lot of boll rot, you typically want to make some back in the top, so you need a few extra nodes. I'm talking about for this environment here at Scott. It's a pretty specific answer.
Yep.
But you've got to aim where it's going, not where you are today. And that's why this whole monitoring management is so important. So if we can help you with that, call us. But the focus of what we're going to talk about today are the plots. And I want to ask y'all a question before we get started. For each of you, what's your favorite plot we've got planted today at Scott?
I would say, the soybeans, we have way more soybeans this year than we've ever had because of Biconic, and for sure. But just looking at all the new hybrids and how they're going to react to everything, especially in the highway, and seeing, of course, the end goal, how high yield they're going to go. Just those are always the favorites of everybody.
I'm kind of with Brent. I mean, we get so many new varieties every year, and I kind of make a little joke. It's like, man, as soon as you think you know one of them, they drop 10 new ones on us. And it's like, well, we got to figure them all out again. But being able to see, we've got our highway field and our buckshot field, and to be able to compare, okay, what does good where? Which bean likes, it can tolerate more, it can have a wet foot, or which bean can sit in that hot sand and still yield. So
the same with cotton.
Yeah.
What cotton varieties react better on clay, which surprisingly sometimes it's the same as sand, same way with corn, the 6835 really have a wet foot, or the 6839 do better, or.
Yep. Yeah, that falls into the learning center category of, if we knew the answers, we wouldn't do experiments.
Absolutely.
That ought to be on a T-shirt.
That needs to be on a T-shirt.
Well,
the same way as we comb the untreated check
cotton
hybrids when we pick them.
Yeah, because they're the tallest untreated cotton we've had here without Mepiquat, I looked in the data the other day, was 106 inches tall.
Yeah, twice the size of me.
Yeah. So anyway, this is a place where we can explore all that. And what we're going to talk about today really is a kind of a summary of everything we've got planted on the Learning Center. And by that, we're going to go through this roughly. We may talk about a little bit of the history. Y'all render your opinions on what we've got planted. We've been in here this morning correcting maps because we make mistakes like the rest of the world.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately.
Well, it happens.
It happens.
It's just like farming with an audience, like I said the other day. And we get it all together and get the data in the best form we can and get the plots tuned up this time of the year. We're waiting on stickers, signs, and all that kind of stuff. So let's go through the individual results, or not results, but the things we've got potential results coming from that you can see when you come to Scott this year. We talked about soybean varieties. We've got those planted on the highway. We've also got corn and cotton planted on the highway and the buckshot. Those are two places where we plant all these products at one population to define how they react in those environments. There are other questions to ask and answer. So we got soybeans on the buckshot and the highway. One very exciting opportunity that we've undertaken this year, and I would like to thank these two guys because they're the willing victims of all this. I sit around here and dream, and they make it happen, and it really is quite an opportunity for all of us. But one thing we discovered this year was we had a field with some reniform nematodes in it. And I got the samples back last week, very high populations of reniform nematodes.
Very high.
So we took the opportunity to plant a couple of different things. One is some in-furrow options in soybeans, and we did a similar test in cotton. We got an array of the typical adapted Delta beans planted with and without vellum, and which is an in-furrow nematode product that Bayer sells. And we've got them with and without some seed treatments or in-furrow options, comparing those things. That's very exciting. We're yet to see the results. Next thing we've got, and this is a question, single and twin row soybeans. We've addressed this more than once.
Correct.
So y'all got an opinion at this point?
I do. I think twins going to win it.
Yeah, I would agree. I know that we've done this in the past, but it's been a pretty long time. From what I can
5
remember.
years.
And this is on a larger scale too. So I always like to see the larger scale plots. I think it's going to be a good test. And I'm also with Brent. I think the twins are going to take home the trophy, but we'll see.
Well, that's good. Y'all been reading the results. Huh? Well, what we've got is from a 4.2 to a 4.9 planted single and twin row. And we overlaid over the top of that some fungicide treatments because those are questions that a lot of folks ask. And this year or this fall, one of my goals is to take all our single and twin row soybean tests we've ever done that I can find the data for and do some sort of a meta-analysis of that, because the twin in Scott and many other places it's rarely ever, if ever, lower yielding than the single.
Correct.
And generally across all our work, it's in the low single digits of bushel better, you know, 3 or 4, something like that. And I think it's worthwhile to refresh that for a new crop of new soybean varieties. So that's pretty exciting. We got y'all's herbicidal tolerance work here. We're looking at some soybean fungicides, an array of that across one set of genetics. One thing we do have, and this points out something we do here around Scott, is a grower sort of a question. And, you know, if you call us and ask a question, or you call one of these guys and ask them, and they come tell me or think it's worthy, you know, worthwhile, we're going to try to put a plot in.
Absolutely.
And I don't remember exactly how this started, but I had a couple of people that called me and said they had put out either cotton or corn fertilizer on land and all of a sudden wanted to plant soybeans on it. And was that, you know, a bad idea, good idea, or indifferent? So we actually did it. We took a set of soybeans from 3.8 to 5.5 and either put no additional in, which is how we typically grow beans, or we put 120 pounds of in or 240 pounds of in. And we planted those beans behind that fertilizer. And that's something that happens occasionally, either by choice or accident.
Or replant corn.
Yeah.
They had that.
Yeah. Corn that gets failed, it doesn't have atrazine under it.
Correct.
Somebody wants to plant beans on it.
Right.
stuff like that. And I just mentioned this because we're here. We're doing some studies this year, and this is probably my favorite. I didn't answer the question. This is probably my favorite. We took some chemical cages, like a bulk tank comes in, mini bulk comes in, and laced them with twine and planted either corn or cotton in it. And we've got all kinds of cool things that are going to come from that. The cages are full of, they call it calcined clay, but it's that little pebble stuff like it's on a baseball field.
Yeah.
Y'all seen me over there talking nice to these and massaging them all year. I'm just fascinated by it. But we've got 2 Precision short corn, or 4 Precision short corns, 4 normal corns. And the ultimate goal is the cage is wrapped in shrink wrap with that clay in it. And we're going to cut the wrap off, wash the roots, and the roots will be hanging on the twine in the cage when y'all come for tours this year.
Right.
And it's going to provide an opportunity to study rooting. Granted, it's not a field situation, but it gives us an opportunity to see about rooting. And
that's right. The good visual representation.
That's exactly right. But we took the opportunity also, we're going to study cotton if we get a chance. And we got a chance. So we took the opportunity and put 2 cotton plants in 2 of the cages each. In 2 of the cages, we're going to put some Mepiquat on one, not on the other, see what effect that has on rooting. And we've also got 2 Bogard 3s and 2 Thrive-Ons in 2 of the cages. And we let the thrips have their way with the Bogard 3s. Matter of fact, I knocked them off one day last week. And see what effect that early thrips feeding, we don't know. I mean, North Carolina State published a paper not too long ago that showed some effect of Thrive-On positively on rooting. And I think these pictures at least will reinforce that. It won't be a peer-reviewed journal thing, but.
Right. Well, we've done that in the greenhouse too.
Yeah. We have.
2 years ago, I think.
Yeah. So we go to pretty extreme lengths at times. So that's what we've got generally in beans. In corn, a similar kind of thing. We've got the hybrids in the highway and the buckshot. One thing that we do every year is population studies in corn.
Right.
And we don't just do that for the yield guard insect trait, or the traded corn, I guess you'd call it. We also do it for the refuges, and we do it for the conventionals. Because, we're required to have a refuge. We need to give agronomic guidance about how to use them. So we've got 2 tests where we planted all the refuge hybrids I could order and all the conventionals that I could order. We'll have those all planted at 3 different populations from low to high. Up here on the main tour route, we've actually got all of the new, or I'd say the candidate new corn hybrids that, we're threatening to sell right now. Those are planted from 28 to 40,000 seed kernels per acre in 4,000 kernel increments. So that'll be on the tour where you can come see us.
And that is a really, really good test to show you where it either fix or flex, and where you can sit in that hybrid.
And really, when you view that in the lens of our past results, about 15 years ago, we were selling hybrids that really needed to be planted at very high population, in my view, 36,000 or more. Today, most of the DeKalb stuff that we're dealing with is kind of optimized in that mid-30s, 34, 35. And there's not a lot of return on pushing really, really high, unless you got something special going on, yield contest or something.
Right.
And we have identified a few hybrids that those really high populations are dangerous in. Sooner or later you start to get logic.
6744.
Yeah, that's a good example. Perfect example, actually. It was the king of the heavy land, and it needed the low population. And we acknowledge that kind of stuff.
You guys think there's going to be one in there that beats 6835?
I don't know. 6835 is the staple right now. Remain to be seen.
You know what category that falls into?
Get out there and look and see what's going to happen.
If we knew the answers, we wouldn't do experiments.
That's right.
Although I will tell you, I love statistics. Beating 6835 and 39 is a pretty good little hurdle today.
That's a huge hurdle.
Yeah, but it's fun to try, and if we're making our progress breeding wise and otherwise, we ought to get there.
I'll say though, 70-45 on that dirt up there, it gives it a run for its
That
money.
sure
Absolutely.
does.
Absolutely.
You know,
It won't do it on clay, but it will.
you get out here on this highway in this sand, and
Yeah.
that is a typical result. The world is fascinated, and me included, with 68-35. But you look at our results over the years in this sand, 70-45 hangs with it pretty
It
hard.
does. And, and 68-35 is top, but the next four are close to it. It's not like you're getting a
That's right.
big window. As long as you put it on the correct soil type.
There's 5 that in good conscience, 5 or 6, maybe more, in good conscience you can plant about anywhere.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Another example, this is a result of this year's experience around the ag industry. We had a lot of frosted off corn.
Especially in Louisiana.
Southeast Arkansas, South Delta. I mean, we had all grades and shades of that. I had folks call and, they were talking about replanting corn. I didn't kill it off, or I don't want to kill it off. I'm going to plant back into it. I think it's dead. On and on the story goes. And in an effort to ask and answer some of their questions, we actually went out and simulated either a non-destroyed stand planted back into, or a planting date where I started over clean, or I planted a low population, or I kept a low population.
Right.
And that's what this corn replanting test is about. It's got 4 hybrids in it, and all grades of stuff from 36,000 planted like it ought to be, 36,000 planted into, because I didn't realize it was either it was alive and going to come back, or, simulating that kind of thing. So we'll have that data at the end of the year. And we've done a little bit of that kind of stuff in the past.
And that's going to be have some low moisture with some high moisture. Harvest.
Yeah, and if you get out in that plot now and look at it, where we planted into that corn we thought was dead, it's a bunch of weeds growing in there.
It's a bunch of weeds. Yep.
And I don't mean pig weeds. Corn weeds.
Corn weeds, that's right.
So let's move over to the best crop of all. We've got cotton planted on the highway and the buckshot in typical fashion. One thing that is unique about our experience this year is how many NPs are on here? 10?
A lot.
Yeah.
12, something like that. So we got the full array of NPE products planted this year on both soil types. And, it kind of goes back to, we talked about corn being so important in our population, being so important in corn. Now we're getting into the cotton, what's important. And PGR response is one of the things we're evaluating. This will forever be one of my favorites, but they're all my favorites. So we've got all the NPEs. Most of the well-adapted commercial things are in our test. We've got an aggressively managed and an untreated check, which goes back to that thing I was talking about. We opened up the podcast of where, what is the nature of an individual variety over time. We've got cotton nematodes. This is, to me, very, very exciting. We've got a test with 7 well-adapted Delta pine varieties, some of which have reniform tolerance in them, some of which do not.
Right.
Most of them, I think all of them, no, 2127's in there. Almost all of these are Thrive On, which will have very little thrips damage. We've got them with some in-furrow products. We've got them with vellum, and we've got this sort of interaction going on with the thrips and the varieties, and all. It's just a cool system. And rarely do you get the nematode numbers that we've got in this field.
Oh, it's high.
Yeah, I don't know how to explain that. That thing's been corn, 5 and 10 years, something like that. But it was on its second year of cotton last year, and it looked kind of sickly.
Right.
Yeah.
So now it's got 3 years of cotton on.
Now this is the 3rd year of cotton, and it's about, what I say a while ago, 534 reniform, 100 cc's.
Average.
Way over the double the threshold.
Average.
And a few of the plots and areas that were sampled in the field are in the thousands.
One of them's high thousands.
One of them's close to 10,000.
Yeah. It was 8,000 and something.
Yeah, 8,000. So that's very exciting for both the in-furrow part and the plant resistance. The native traits. We've got a test, Cotton 4 here, which is actually systems. And y'all know my affinity for bugs and insects of every kind.
Greenhouse North.
Yeah, they get an earful of I tell everybody here, remember you ask when you ask an insect question. They can tell you about their lunchtime lectures sometime when you come around, Scott. But we've got a test here, which is systems. And by that, I mean we've got some Bogard 3s, which are non-Thrivone, and we've got Thrivones planted. We've got them where we're controlling thrips, but not lygus. We've got them where we're not controlling thrips, but we are controlling lygus. We've got an untreated, and then we got a set sprayed by threshold. And I would point out to the audience that Thrivone, if you have adult numbers if you have plant bugs that enter the field or exist in the field above threshold, they have to be sprayed.
Absolutely.
Yep.
That's been our experience on the Learning Center, right?
Yeah, that's right. And you got a picture of screensaver over there on that computer.
Yeah, that picture I hope haunts the world because
it
it shows you what you can do with technology and properly used insecticides.
That's right.
And it does my heart good to get out and be an entomologist again about a day a week. We've got fertility thing going on here where we've got some different fertility sources in 5 different cotton varieties. We playing around with some ammonium sulfate, some liquid N, different combinations, just seeing what we can learn from that. We've got all the NPE products planted on the South 40, which is
a very variable,
a highly variable field, which I did not think would have nematodes, but it's a little bit above the threshold for reniform. So we put all the NPE products, we put all the commercial products that would fit, that are well adapted. And we've got those with and without vellum, and they're 1 acre plots. And I didn't mention that earlier. Most of these plots are relatively large. Let's see what else we got here. And we've got the cotton bow bar, which we've got to cut in once we get
we got to get a measurement.
That's one of our most popular things that we do every year. It's a row length demonstration of the productivity of cotton over time.
Right.
And I think that's kind of a neat place to call today's podcast, because when y'all come to Scott on the tour this year, and you're all invited, this bow bar will be out in the field for you to look at. And what it shows you is the amount of row length that it took from 1925 to 2025 to make the same amount of lint. And if you look at the measurement, our cotton is about 5 or 6, 7 times more productive today on the acre than it was then. But none of that happens in a vacuum. It all happened because of Dr. Jones and his breeding progress, because of Thrivone, because of Bogard, because of new insecticides. But it really happened because the cotton industry adopted all that stuff and showed the ability and desire and willingness to be progressive.
Right.
And do it the way it needs to be done. So I would invite the audience, y'all will all come see us, contact your local Bayer rep. If you don't know them, seek them out. They ought to be seeking you out.
Yeah.
And tell them you want to come to Scott and take the tour and see what's going on, because this belongs to the ag industry.
Absolutely.
Y'all know I take that very seriously. We all do.
We do too.
And anybody that wants to come see it, come help us, come participate, come criticize.
Yeah.
Come see us.
We like it all.
Yep. We like it all.
We can take criticism.
That's right. I tell everybody I like being wrong here.
Right.
That way, hopefully, less people have to be wrong or experiment to learn what they need to do.
That's right. Let us mess it up.
Yeah. We mess up some of Bayer's cotton. Who cares? Yeah. That's what it's here for.
That's what it's here for.
So with that, I think we'll wrap up today. Y'all got any closing comment?
I'll just reiterate what you say. Just come on out and see us. If you got any questions or you want to see something done, just give us a shout or contact your Bayer rep and let them know. We would love to put it in and do a test on it.
Yep.
Same.
Well, with that, thank y'all for joining us today. We will see you down the road.